Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Light Sports Ramble presented by the Light Sports Network. I am Troy Otradovic, and for our loyal listeners, there will not be another voice with Evan today, as his real job has called him to a meeting. He is going to try to join me a little later when his meeting is up. But today we do have a special guest, as we have been promoting all week. We have the new commissioner of the IFL. It is Mike, and I hope I say your last name right, Mike. It's Mike Allshouse. Did I say it correctly?
That's right. Good job.
All right. Well, my last name's Otradovic. Nobody ever says it right, so I can't take offense when people say my last name wrong. But like I had said before, Mike, I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. I didn't get to answer your question right before we went on the air. However long you have is great. Just let me know and say, hey, Troy, I've got a buzz. However much time you can give me today, I appreciate it. But just to get into it, Mike, I know you're stretched for time. So the big question with our listeners, normally we talk a lot of professional football, NFL. This is a different venue. It's indoor football. But just give the listeners a little bit of a recap of what indoor football is all about.
Absolutely. Thanks, Troy, first for having me on. Appreciate you guys spreading the word about the IFL and what we do. Again, can't say enough for the appreciation that we show for all the radio shows, all the media across the nation that are helping to spread the word about our great sport. So again, thanks for the time. Thanks for having me on. And to answer your question, indoor football is basically we like to picture ourselves as bringing outdoor traditional football indoors on a field that's half as long and half as wide. So if your listeners can picture that, we play on a 50-yard long field. Our field width is about 26 yards wide. And instead of playing 11 on 11 football, we play 8 on 8 football. So you basically drop the two offensive guards on offense, and you drop a defensive end and a linebacker on defense there, and you get around to 8 on 8 football that we have. So again, unlike the Arena League, we're not sort of a made-up game where every down is a passing down and you just throw the ball deep and there's limitations of what the defense can and can't do. We like to model ourselves after the traditional outdoor game. So in our game, you're going to see the same high-scoring action that you see in Arena Leagues, but instead you're also going to see the run game. Running backs are very prevalent in our game. Defensive goal line stands are very prevalent in our game. And again, you're still going to see all the high-scoring, hard-hitting action, players going over the boards, balls going into the stands where the fans can take the ball home when it's like catching a foul ball in an MLB game. If you catch a football at our game, you can take it home and have a nice little souvenir. So again, we like to think that we're carving ourselves out a nice little niche in our markets here across the Midwest where our teams are located, and like to think that we're providing some family-friendly, low-cost entertainment to the citizens of our community that we're in. So,
that's great. And like I had told you, Mike, I hail from Green Bay, and I know that the IFL has a franchise out in Green Bay called the Green Bay Blizzard. And they've been a very successful team in the past. I know they were a little bit down last year. But before I get into the actual league itself, I know that you yourself have just moved into the new role as commissioner this year. So kind of take us through that, your history in the IFL and moving into the commissioner's role. What is your vision as the commissioner for the IFL as you take over a new role this year?
Yeah, I started with the league in 2009. I came in right after the first year of the Indoor Football League. The Indoor Football League's first year was in the spring of 2009. I started in September of 2009. So this will be my fifth season with the IFL. I started in the communications department of the league, working as the director of communications. Then worked my way over to football ops, where dealt a lot with our coaches and our on-the-field rules and bylaws and operations and whatnot. Then recently was promoted to the assistant commissioner, and then even more recently was named the third commissioner in the history of the IFL in December. So I guess you could say I've kind of grown within the company here over the last 5 years and have really been exposed to all the aspects of our business. and I'm really proud and very humbled that our directors felt that I was qualified enough and ready to lead this organization in the right direction here. And as far as the vision, again, we spoke before we got on air here, but I really pride ourselves. I'm very proud of what our teams are doing in their individual markets, mainly located in the Midwest. We had a team as far west as Kennewick, Washington, which is in Washington State, about 4 hours southeast of Seattle, and then as far east as Green Bay, Wisconsin, as you mentioned with the blizzard. So again, I'm very happy with what we're doing in our individual markets as far as getting out in the community, being good members of our community, and also putting on a good show for the citizens of those communities. And I feel that again, our mission and our vision is to be upstanding citizens and to really provide family-friendly, fun, exciting entertainment for the people in our communities.
And I'm going to touch on that as one of your fan base. Like I said, Mike, when I lived in Green Bay, I actually held season tickets, went to the Green Bay Blizzard. We all know that Green Bay is known for, of course, the Green Bay Packers. But when you play your season, which is underway right now, you guys actually had the home opener last weekend, and so this season is underway and in full force. And it is perfect off-season time for people in the community, even if they have professional football, to be able to enjoy football in that springtime. But I'd like to ask you, how does that work in those communities where you have a Green Bay Packers organization, and then you are trying to fit your niche, the Green Bay Blizzard in the IFL, into that community? How has that worked out, adding the IFL into a market with a professional team?
Yeah, we've had varying success with that. The running joke in our league is after the Super Bowl, we like to, say thanks to the NFL for keeping football fans occupied during our off season, and now the real football begins during our season. So again, obviously the NFL is on a completely different level than any other professional league out there. So we kid ourselves with that. But again, I think we've touched on a few things that really we're trying to separate ourselves and really carve ourselves out a nice little niche market for what we do within our communities, whether it is a big community such as Dallas, Texas, where we have a team named the Texas Revolution that are located right outside of Dallas and Allen, a suburban community down there, or the Green Bay Green Bay Blizzard, who are in obviously Green Bay and I think they even share a parking lot with their stadium, the Lambeau Field there with the Packers.
Yes, they do.
So again, we don't directly compete with the NFL. That's not, we're not trying to go up against the NFL at all. We're trying to provide sports fans and really families some fan-friendly family entertainment during those off seasons, not during the peak seasons where baseball hasn't really started up yet. Indoor hockey, minor league hockey seasons are starting to wind down. And really, we're just trying to fill that void there between February and June for a family that, hey, on a Friday or Saturday night wants to take a couple of their kids out. Four people get into a game, they have hot dogs, they have a few drinks, and it's not going to cost them an arm and a leg to do it. So really, that's kind of our goal. And again, each person in each of our markets, it varies. Whether it's Green Bay, whether it's Texas, whether it's Cedar Rapids, whether it's Sioux Falls. Again, I don't think the NFL really affects us too much when it comes to that.
I don't believe it does either, because like I said, I've seen the product up close as a fan, and I think the one thing, and I want to kind of go back maybe to the original part of this, Mike, when you talked about the IFL, because there are different leagues around, Arena League Football, IFL. You mentioned something very important. The running backs and that running part of the game is a different thing in the IFL, because I think a lot of people just assume that it's arena football. But you guys are actually a different mold to be able to add a little bit of the more true football feel to the game, just it's always inside on a smaller field. So when you look at that, the one thing that you see, is that the biggest different factor from the other leagues? Because to the general fan, they're going to put you guys in arena football all into the same bowl. If I went out and talked to the general fan, They would think you guys are exactly the same. Is there anything else that makes you different than the Arena Football League when it comes to indoor football?
Yeah, just like we don't compete really with the NFL, I truly don't think that we compete very much with the AFL either. Again, none of the AFL teams or any of the markets that we're in, they tend to be in slightly larger markets. Again, they have a completely different game than we do. But more so than just football, I really think the thing that separates our league from many of the indoor or arena leagues that are out there are really the people that we have involved working with our league. And, with minor league sports, teams come and go, players come and go. But the ones that really know what they're doing and the ones that really care about this and are work hard and are determined to see this thing be successful are the ones that stick around. And I'm happy to say that we have quite a few of those in our league. In a minor league sports where, again, as I said, teams kind of come and go as they please, it seems nowadays. We got a couple teams that are going into their 15th season of operation this year, being the Sioux Falls Storm and the Wyoming Cavalry. Our Tri-Cities team is going into their 10th year. Green Bay's up there as well. The average IFL team has been in existence for nearly 8.5 years. So again, some of these other leagues, they're not as stable, they're not as professionally ran, in my opinion, as what we do. So I really think that's what separates us from many of those other leagues and really puts the IFL on the map as really, we like to call ourselves the premier indoor football league in the nation. So regardless of what goes on the field, I think our talent is the tops in the nation as well as far as the skilled players that we bring in, and our coaches do a great job of recruiting and finding that talent. But really, it's the people off the field, the owners of our league, the coaches, the GMs that really separate us from the pack. Yeah,
that's great. And, I wanted to really have the listeners understand that because there is some different factors when you look at the different leagues. But I know for a fact, just talking to people that I know, they think it's all the same. They don't know there's these different leagues around, and I definitely wanted to get that out for the listeners. You brought up a good point too, Mike, that you got to put a good product on the field. So take the listeners through, as a team, how are they going out and getting these players to be able to put a roster together as the season starts?
Mm-hmm. Well, each of our teams are responsible for their own individual recruiting of players, signing of players. If they want to hold an open tryout in the community, they're more than welcome to. A lot of the coaches in our league are former college coaches, or they've been around the indoor or arena game for a very long time, are very well connected with agents and with various universities and colleges across the nation. So again, they're very well connected. They have a good network where they can draw on players. Every year there's thousands of players that are graduating from college that, for whatever reason, were a couple inches too short, a couple seconds too slow in their 40-yard dash, or weren't able to bench press enough weight, or what have you, that don't get drafted in the NFL for that reason. Well, we'll gladly offer them a home in the IFL on one of our rosters if our coaches feel that they're talented enough to play. So again, fans that go to our games see near NFL quality talent on the field. Most of our guys have already been in rookie or training camp, mini camps with NFL teams. A lot of them have been on CFL rosters. It seems like every week we're promoting a guy to either the CFL or the NFL. So again, that's our coaches. It's really been a true testament to the hard work and the dedication of our coaches over the past couple of years to really increase our talent pool and really put a quality product on the field for our fans to enjoy.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. I don't recall the name, but I know the Blizzard had just recently signed a player that had been with the Green Bay Packers for a short amount of time. And so my question was going to be, the success of the players, does anybody come to mind? Has there been anybody in the league that has made the jump from the IFL to a roster in the NFL that you can share with us, or a feel-good story that you remember from your time in the IFL?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the IFL as it is now, again, was formed in 2009. What I didn't mention was that was formed out of a merger of two leagues. One was called the UIF, which was based on teams based in the Midwest, and there was a league called the Intense Football League, which was a league based in Texas. I had a lot of Texas teams. So those two leagues merged to form the IFL. And one member that played in the UIF for one of the teams had a player by the name of Fred Jackson, that I'm sure some of your listeners are familiar with, the running back for the Buffalo Bills. So he got his start in indoor football in one of our pre-existing leagues that formed the IFL. Also a gentleman named Anthony Armstrong, maybe not quite as familiar to your listeners, but he was a wide receiver for our team in Texas that signed with the Washington Redskins a few years ago, had a decent year, and has been with the Cowboys and Dolphins most recently, I believe. Those are the two most prominent ones, I guess, that have stuck around for multiple years there in the NFL. We've had numerous others. Dravorsky Lane, a fullback that played with the Miami Dolphins a couple of years ago. He was featured on Hard Knocks, the HBO TV show, with them. Maurice Simpkins was a Green Bay Blizzard who actually made the trip across the street there to Lambeau Field and got signed to the Packers a few years ago. And then ended up with the Rams, finishing his career in the NFL. So again, the list goes on and on. That we've had numerous players, more than I can count, that have definitely signed NFL contracts, that have been invited to training camp. Obviously, it's very hard to make it in that league. So much fewer that have actually made a roster and stuck around and played for a few years in the NFL. But those are probably the most prominent ones that we've had.
And that is just, it's awesome that there's that opportunity, to be able to get the start there. And like you said, you're absolutely right. Fred Jackson is probably the biggest name of all of them, and I bet you a lot of listeners don't even know that he had started in the IFL. Well, while we were talking, Mike, Evan's real job must have ended, as I'm going to let him on the show. So, hey, buddy, welcome to the show. I got Mike on the line with us.
Yeah, I'm glad I could make it. As Troy said, real job steps in. The meeting I was supposed to have at 4:30, the parent decided to get almost an hour early, and then I have to go do the paperwork. So appreciate you joining us, Mike, and I do apologize that I am super late getting in. So
no worries. Thanks a lot for having me on the show.
Now, Mike.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, I know, Mike, we were talking about time. Our show has about 10 minutes left. Can you still hang with us for 10 minutes, or do you have to run?
I got about 5.
5. If you can give us 5, that would be great. So I know, Evan, we've talked about a few things, but I've been bleeding the listeners' ears with my voice. So I'm going to let you jump in, Evan, and ask Mike anything you want to ask him about the IFL.
Well, I don't really know what you've asked so far, so I guess can you just give me a 2-second recap of what you kind of asked so far?
Well, we talked about the history of the IFL. We talked about Green Bay. Talked about the players. How the teams go about the tryouts, and we've talked a little bit about the fan experience. We've talked about, like Mike had just said, about the players that have went on from the IFL into the NFL. Now, that's pretty much been the conversation that we've had.
Well, I guess the question I would have for you, and I'm sure our listeners aren't really, sure. What's the biggest difference between you guys, the IFL, and then the AFL? Like, what's the biggest difference between the two of those?
Mike, I'll let you answer again.
We touched on that a little bit. we touched on that a little bit earlier. We have 8-on-8, so both games are outdoor football brought indoors. And instead of 11-on-11 football, as you see in the NFL and NCAA, we have 8-on-8. So we have 8 men on offense, 8 men on defense. The big difference between our two sports is that we view ourselves as traditional football, outdoor football, brought indoors. Again, we feature the pass game, the run game. We have goal line stands. There's not a lot of restrictions on our defensive teams that allow them to kind of, again, play traditional outdoor football. But in the NFL, there's numerous rules on the defense that limits what they are allowed to do, which makes it more beneficial for the offense to throw the ball in just about 90% of their offensive plays. So you basically see, 7-on-7, a lot of passing in their league, whereas our league, it's more running. It's more of a well-rounded, in my opinion, football game that our fans get to see in our league. So that would imagine, and they have different things with their special teams as far as kicking. They have net apparatuses. where we just have a simple field goal in each of our end zones, and you don't have the ricochet off of the nets or any of that stuff. So again, both leagues are variations of outdoor football brought indoors. We just have a few different rules that kind of separate ourselves, and I believe make us a little bit more traditional outdoor football brought indoors.
Hey, Mike, for those fans,
and the AF.
Go ahead, Evan.
I was going to say the AFL has had some numerous some financial issues, especially during that's called the Great Recession. They actually shut down shop for, I believe, a season, and it doesn't look like you guys were affected at all, and you guys are actually still, going strong. Why have you guys not really been affected at all by the economy like the AFL has?
Well, in minor league sports, again, it's a very tough business. Teams come and go. I like to think that the ones that are very professional and know what they're doing and are hardworking are the ones that stick around. So again, we're not immune to any of the economic conditions that are out there, just like any other professional league, whether it's major or minor league. Again, we're a league that used to be 25 members at one point in our inception. We're down to about 10 now. So we've gone through our trials and tribulations over the years as far as making sure that all of our teams are financially capable to pull this thing off, and also are being successful not just on the field but off the field as well, because that's what will keep them coming back year in and year out. So again, I'm not quite sure how the AFL struggles were. Again, we've had our own struggles, but we're definitely not immune or perfect in any way when it comes to that sort of thing.
And just kind of staying on that, Mike, I know we're limited for time with you. When you look at, you had said, you went down when you guys had merged. Now you're down to where you're at with your teams. When you look at the future, is there time for expansion, and how do you see that going? Is it something that you visit every year, or is it something that you look at and say, well, it has to be really feasible? What are your expansion plans for the IFL?
It's a year-round process that we deal with expansion. Again, it's not we're going to work on it once our season ends kind of thing. It's a 24/7 every day of the year. We want to help grow our business model, whether that means add expansion teams, whether it means other deals, or to try to bring in more revenue to our league, or whatever it may be. But as far as expansion, we're very happy to announce an expansion team in Billings, Montana, which will begin play next season, the 2015 season. We just announced them last week, had a big press conference in Billings. We used to have a team in Billings called the Outlaws about 3 years ago, but unfortunately a tornado kind of devastated the area there, tore down the building that they played in, the arena. So that team had to cease operations because they didn't have a place to play the following season. So the city has really rebounded. They've rebuilt the arena. It's very beautiful. I was there, again last week, touring the place, 8,700 seats, nice, newly renovated, state-of-the-art arena. So we're happy to announce a team there that puts us at our 10th team. And again, we're looking, there's when it comes to expansion, there's not a one-size-fit-all kind of thing that we're looking at. There's various markets across the Midwest that fit our geographic area that we would love to be in. But there's three things that you have to have an IFL team. First is an arena that's feasible to play our games, so it has to hold at least 5,000 feet, has to logistically fit our arena, our turf, our width, and size of our fields. The second thing is a community that we feel is going to be able to support the team. Again, as I said, there's not a one-size-fit-all with that. So it could be a community as small as Bemidji, Minnesota, who has a team, and their city is about 15,000 people in Bemidji. But in their first game, they drew almost 3,500 fans for their first game the past weekend. Or as big as Allen, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas that has millions of people in the population. So we need a community that we feel is going to be able to support the team. And the final thing is a local investment group that is willing to own and operate the team. And we'll obviously guide them and hold their hand through the process and show them and give them the tools that they need to be successful in operating an IFL team. But without those three things, expansion and putting an IFL team in the market just cannot happen. So those are the three things that we're looking for. We have a plan to do that. We identify markets. We have in my office, I have a gentleman by the name of Mike McCoy, who's our Director of Business Development, who heads up all of our expansion efforts. So again, we have a nice plan and strategy laid out for us, and hopefully we'll be announcing new teams here in the coming months, just as we just did with Billings, Montana. So
that is awesome, Mike. And in lieu of your time commitments, I'm gonna hold you right to that 5 minutes. It looks like your time is up for your next commitment. I do appreciate the time. I know you're a busy man, but to be able to come on our show and talk about the IFL, Evan and I both appreciate it. If there's anything that we can do on the Red Light Sports Ramble to help you promote the IFL, we definitely will. As I had told you before the show, actually just today I had worked with Sean, somebody that you're familiar with. We have media credentials for the Green Bay Blizzard. We'll definitely be talking to the Blizzard and promoting the IFL on all of our social media sites, on our show. We really love the product you have. So from me, Mike, I appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Evan, again for having me on and letting me share our great sport that we have here in the Indoor Football League. Also, all your fans, if you guys don't have an IFL team in your market, well, if you do, get out there, watch the games, go by and have a good time. But if you don't, we do offer a live streaming broadcast of all of our IFL games, which is on AmericaOneSports.com, www.AmericaOneSports.com. Look up the IFL, and you'll get a chance to, if you can't be there in person, at least you can watch them from the comfort of your home each and every weekend when we have our games. So, again, thank you for having me on, and best of luck with the show, guys.
Thanks, Mike. I'll be in touch with you.
All righty.
All right, buddy. I'm glad you made it back from work okay.
Yeah, I'm still a little PO'd that I had to, I rearranged, my schedule, and he rearranged his, and you rearranged yours to accommodate the change in mine, and I have to do it anyways. I have to do the meeting anyways, and I have to miss the show, so I'm a little PO'd about that. But
well, you didn't miss.
I guess that's what happens when you have a quote unquote real job.
Yeah, the real job. So for those listeners out there that were listening to Mike, that are possibly thinking about IFL teams, if you want to sponsor a show, Evan and I are ready. We're ready to do this full time, so we don't have to have all this time communication difference. But I'll tell you what, Evan, you had a chance to jump on with Mike there at the end. I apologize for not giving you that question, but we had a good conversation. Your questions were great too. I want to give the listeners the actual website for the IFL, and it talks about the history of the IFL. There is a difference between the IFL and the AFL.
90 seconds.
And, you should go check it out if you have an opportunity, if there's a team in your market. But the website is goifl.com. It's goifl.com. And it explains the league, talks about the teams. It's a very well-run league. And like you had mentioned, Evan, to Mike, yeah, the team has lost a few teams over the years, but they really didn't have to shut down shop like the AFL did during a time.
60 seconds.
They were able to keep operating, and you and I are witness to that with the Green Bay Blizzard right there in the Packers' backyard. So, it was nice to see Mike on the show. I had broke the news to you today, broke it to our listeners. We have media credentials for the Blizzard, so we're going to definitely cover the Green Bay Blizzard. Have some shows with Blizzard, hopefully players and coaches, and be able to recap some games about the IFL. Have you ever got up to Green Bay, Evan, and watched a Blizzard game?
Yeah, it's been quite a while. My brother interned with them briefly a few years back, and I was able to go because the interns, they gave tickets to the families, so I was able to go. So it's a fun experience there.
Well, now you're going to be able to go whenever you want. As we're going to have. Now you're going to be able to go whenever you want. We'll go up there and be able to cover them. When I get back in town to visit, hopefully it's during the Blizzard season, I'll be able to go and actually cover them myself personally. But with that said, Bud, we're just about ready to wrap up the show for today. I think what you need to do on a Friday night is to just go home and relax. Get ready for tomorrow's Red Light Rant. So for all our listeners, it's been a busy week on the Red Light Sports Ramble. We've had 4 guests this week. Tomorrow is the Red Light Rant, where Evan and I are going to come at you with a passionate opinion and give you another great show tomorrow morning. So with that said, everyone, we'll see you at the next red light. We'll get back at you tomorrow.